happy, 'cause today I found my friends in my head. I'm so ugly, that's okay, 'cause so are you. Look on me as Sunday morning, it's every day for all I care. And I'm not scared, light my candles in our days, 'cause I found God. I'm so lonely, that's okay, shake my head. And I'm not sad, and just maybe I'm to blame for all I've heard. I'm not sure, I'm so excited, I can't wait to meet you there. I don't care, I'm so horny, that's okay, my will is good. I'm so happy, 'cause today I found my friends in my head. I'm so ugly, that's okay, 'cause so are you. Broke on me is Sunday morning, it's every day for all I care. And I'm not scared, light my candles in our days, 'cause I found God. Yeah. It's there.
Yeah, is that good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, great. And we are live. We currently have one viewer. That's pretty great. Who knows who it is? Could be any one of my students, any one of your students.
Okay.
Could be any one of our mutual friends, Janine, Tiffy, Trevor, Harvey, logging in. Who knows? Great. Well, let's get started. A few simple questions to start off the show. Just tell the audience who you are and what you do here at Florida State.
Hello, I'm Dr. Frank Gunderson, and I teach musicology here at Florida State University. I've been here since 2003, so that's going on 20 some odd years, and I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, great. What do you like about your job? Like, what's the best part about it?
Well, I've worn a lot of different hats since I've been here, and I'm currently the coordinator of the area, which is roughly translated as the chair. And what I like about that job is the comprehensive sense of seeing who our students are, seeing who our faculty are, getting to know their work, and having a role in leading this community and guiding the community and learning from this community in all the ways possible that job entails. So it's currently wearing that administrative hat where I'm also teaching and also doing research. Teaching, of course, is something that I love very much. And that feeds into also my research, and the research feeds into the teaching. So the loop between research and teaching is important to me. And the way that works is just, we have downtimes as professors where we are allowed to do research, and the work that we produce and cultivate in during that time, feeds into the teaching lives that we have as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. So as you're stepping into this new role, and when you say area, there's now the alignment of musicology historical and musicology ethno. So now it's just musicology. And so you are the chair of the musicology.
Right. And it's always been that here. So we've had this idea that we've been kind of running for some 25 years or so, of this idea of what we call big M. So it's the larger sense of musicology, meta musicology, so to speak, that actually goes back to the 1920s and 1930s when musicology was kind of first getting going. It was also like that. And then there was kind of a branching out of compartmentalization of musicology into these other camps that included historical musicology and also ethnomusicology. And we've always here at Florida State University had this kind of broader sensibility of what that is. And this is something that I embrace wholeheartedly, only because I think that the prefix, in this case of the ethno musicology, has run its course, so to speak, or run its usefulness in the sense of in a way, kind of like setting up, and solidifying this idea of the West and the rest. And as much as we can break that up in the 21st century, I think we will be a better discipline. So that is happening also in our disciplines. There's a move toward that model, and so that's what we've tried to do here, and we're trying to do it administratively as well, and in terms of the courses that we teach.
So when you say break up the division between the West and the rest, that would be better for musicology. If I can interpret what you mean by that, you probably mean something about values and unnecessary differentiations and categorizations of people that are perhaps unjust. But you probably also mean it's better musicology, that it's a better way of understanding the way that people relate to music.
Yeah, I think so. Again, we have to give the proper credit to why these breakaways occurred. I think that that's also important to note because, circa 1935, 1940, musicology per se was mostly 98% of what people were doing at that time was, quite frankly, Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart, and it was all the West. And so there was this kind of a revolution that took place in the mid 40s up into the 50s with these folks who were asking questions like, well, wait a minute, what about, this Indian raga system that we're learning about here, where you've got all these microtones and all these really interesting rhythmic sensibilities here that in a way surpasses tenfold anything that's going on in the West. And
Hmm.
so, why are we not studying that stuff? And so those folks, together with the popular music people, kind of banded together and had this rebellion, literally, so to speak, that took place in the early 1950s and called themselves ethnomusicology. So my sense is that rebellion, so to speak, went through different stages of childhood and adolescence, and then early adulthood, and then adulthood, and then I think it kind of ran its course right up until about the end of the 20th century,
Hmm.
whereby people started to think, well, wait a minute, it's like, why? What's with the prefix? What's the prefix, and what's with this division between the West and the rest?
Right.
Whereas before it was just the West, and there was no rest.
Right.
And so now where we are, it's kind of like, because of globalization, because of just the sense that we're all connected, um, much more than we have ever been. Um, I think that that's all coming back around, and folks are just asking themselves, why can't we just call what we do, the study of music or musicology?
Right. Right.
That's a quick nutshell.
Okay, I appreciate that. What has it been like transitioning into administration for you?
Um, well, I have an interest in administration because um, um, we can enact and put on paper policies that will make these kinds of changes more concrete. And so that's been the positive side of it, and that interests me. Interests me theoretically and practically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Great. I want to talk about your childhood a little bit before we get too heady into the academia stuff. What was little Frankie, cousin Frankie? What was he like as a kid?
Well, we're gonna get into a cousin Frankie story, but first let me start off then with um, being at my auntie's house when I was 4 years old, and remembering upon your cue the very first song that I remember like memorizing and then dancing to and singing along with my auntie when I was 4 years old, which was at that time, I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles.
Okay, yeah, keep going.
So, I mean, that song seems kind of corny and dated on many levels, but I mean, there was an energy that was in that piece that really struck little cousin Frankie at the time, and my auntie, who's still with us, remembers very clearly when that happened. Because in her case, I mean, she was a teenager, and so she was like really caught up in that whole world.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so then that's sort of like your earliest memory of engaging with music as a listener.
Literally, and reacting to it and dancing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's awesome. But I imagine you went through school and you did music in school, I'm guessing. What was your young life like as a music learner? What was your sort of primary instrument if you had one? How did you relate to it? I know you went to Evergreen, and I believe you got a music degree at Evergreen. Oh no, Evergreen doesn't have degrees. Is that right?
Evergreen doesn't have a music degree, but they have an arts degree, a Bachelor of Arts degree, which is what I have.
Hmm.
And as far as my musical upbringing, Formally, I didn't really play music until I was in early junior high, and I played this rather idiosyncratic instrument called the alto clarinet. Played alto clarinet in band and then also in marching band through junior high. And then when I was in high school, I played guitar in the jazz band that was also formed at that time. So by the time I was 11 years old, I was playing guitar and taking lessons. And by the time I was 13, 14, 15, I was pretty serious into guitar music and learning classical guitar and taking lessons and also playing in jazz ensemble through high school. So that was my kind of formal practice in terms of music learning. But I think informally, and probably more important, was my dad. And my dad, who was a private contractor worker for the Navy in this town that I grew up in called Bremerton, Washington, in Washington State. It's about an hour by ferry boat across the bay from Seattle. And he was a lifelong, for lack of a better term, obsessed jazz enthusiast with thousands of LPs in our living room space in a stereo. And when he was not working, which was quite often, he was playing this music and having his friends come over together with his like-minded, obsessed jazz kind of proto-hippie beatnik friends who would come over and listen to this music and then get into arguments about who played on what and who did what, and just having this kind of Wikipedia-esque collective memory about jazz history and the sharing of jazz history through discussions about jazz music. And so as a kid growing up, that was just kind of like always going on. And I think that had an influence on me as a musicologist, probably more than anything else. Just, folks talking about jazz, and who I thought were experts, and they were experts, though they didn't have, degrees to show it.
So you seem to be somebody who's really into collecting. I know that just from reading a little bit about you. You're really into cassette tapes. You did college radio. So the idea of like catalogs, and it seems like maybe that's something you may have inherited from your dad. This obsession over keeping track of like these new things that are coming out and having conversations with your friends. However, the music of your youth was of a different time than the music of your father's youth. But perhaps, and this is, maybe too simple of a comparison, but maybe the same relationship that you had to the youth music during your college years is kind of like what your dad was doing with the proto beatniks. It was just a different genre of music.
I see several threads that I could kind of run with there, but so let me get back to the collecting obsession. I think that that's a psychoanalytical perception that you're having that I haven't really ever thought of, though now that I'm telling the story, I'm making that connection that, yeah, that's probably where that came from in my own collecting mania, which I think I've left behind for a while, but it was definitely a time that I went through.
Did you leave it behind? Because your most recent Fulbright is basically doing the same thing, but in Dar es Salaam.
Right. I have to say that I didn't really do.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I didn't really do what I said I was going to do. Which was, further collecting.
Yeah.
Though, I did to some degree, maybe in the sense of like doing interviews and collecting interviews. I did an awful lot of that. So maybe in the sense of formally talking to folks about music and getting their perceptions about music in a formal way, that's qualitative but also quantitative. I did do that. I did definitely do that. And so, okay, yeah, I correct myself. I've been a collector for quite some time, depending on how we define collector.
Okay, got you. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, this seems like wonderful training for becoming a musicologist. So much of the critique that people have of formal music education through schools is that it doesn't really speak to the kind of music engagements young people will have after high school. So it seems like maybe that's kind of true, although you played in jazz band. I don't know when last time you picked up your alto clarinet was, but the experiences that you had with your father seem to have been perhaps transformative and perhaps also good preparation for this analytical approach to understanding popular music.
Thank you. I want to say this again about my perceptions of my father. I think that the thing that I got from him, um, in connection to what you're asking, was my respect for um, intellectuals that are not necessarily college educated. Even though he did go to college, he went to like night school and got a degree, later as an adult. Um, but just the knowledge that you know so many people that we run into in our lives um, have, but are not necessarily pedigreed. And my respect for that in the musical world, came from my youth.
Right.
Yeah.
Great segue.
Thank
I
you.
want to move on to some of your musical choices.
Mhm.
One thing that I've observed about your musical choices, and as we're going to find out in this interview, you are a scholar of Tanzanian popular music, and some of the examples that you chose are from that. But you're also somebody who grew up in the Northwest at a certain time when Bikini Kill was coming through, and we'll probably speak about Nirvana and Kurt Cobain at some point in this conversation.
Mm.
But I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about I believe the 2010 book, We Never Sleep, We Dream of Farming, and then some of the selections you have on here, including like Lucinda Williams, certainly the music of Human Scab. There's something here about social class.
Mm.
All of the music that I see on the list that you gave me, including and hopefully I'm going to pronounce this correctly, musiki wa dansi,
Mm.
is all of a particular social class that is people's music. This is music for just like everyday people, whatever term we want to use, working class, whatever. There's something about social class that unites this all. And I find it kind of interesting that you are in the ivory tower, you are operating within academia, but you're likely quite conversant in just chopping it up with people about music. And so perhaps that's something that you got from your dad, this sort of like everyday conversational quality of understanding music.
I wasn't expecting to talk about my in this conversation.
I hope that's okay.
But it is okay, because I think your question is very perceptive, and I think that that's probably true, because my dad was definitely working class, and um, I wasn't really raised in a working class environment, though. I think my dad was like really trying to kind of push his kids, into kind of another level. And he also moved into another level in his own life as well. But I've definitely always respected working class people, and definitely connect with that music in every sense of the term. And so, yeah, when I was in high school, um, I was really definitely, kind of into the wide variety of music that was um, on radio in the 1970s. There's such a wide palette of sound that was going on there, whether it was soul music or rock or hard rock or um, other genres from '70s. But then when punk rock kind of came around, that really caught my ear very specifically. And for whatever reason, maybe it was the class environment, maybe just because it was so different, or maybe I was struck by um, the quote unquote non musicality that was associated with that music, and the sense that it was something that was quite easy to do, and the social environments that were associated with it all struck me. And so when I was in Seattle growing up, that was a burgeoning scene that kids were flocking to and being a part of. And so, yeah, that was definitely a moment.
Could we play some examples of some music that you selected? And are the Minutemen from the Northwest?
Mhm.
Okay, I know Bikini Kill are, but perhaps we can bring up Minutemen,
Okay.
and then you can tell us a little bit about this.
Working on the edge, losing my self-respect. For a man who presides over me, the principle of his creed. Punch in, punch out, 8 hours, 5 days. Sweat, pain, and agony. On Friday, I'll be paid.
Okay, so I have this as 1984, the Minutemen. This Ain't No Picnic, and I mean these lyrics are just explicitly about class, right? So how does Little Frankie? What does this song sound like to you in '84?
Well, at that point in my life, I was in my early 20s, but I picked this song because, well, for a number of reasons. I mean, in terms of just that punk rock sound that I was talking about, but also the Americanness of that punk rock sound. It's kind of like what I was really thinking about when I made these selections, and what this band and that this song and the burgeoning genre that was associated with this band and the label that they were on was associated with was the West Coast American response to
We'll stop this next one. There we go.
sorry, the British invasion of punk rock that happened in the late '70s. So that was important to me, circa 1984, and a lot of people were listening to that music because these bands from California and SST Records, Los Angeles, were doing like West Coast tours, and they were making their way up to Portland and up to Olympia and up to Seattle. Olympia was where I was at that time. So that was just part of the scene, the kind of the West Coast American version of this music. And you keep bringing up class, and so yeah, we can go there for sure. It was definitely a kind of class thing, I think, in many respects.
Well, let's take a look at Bikini Kill. Bikini Kill Rebel Girl next. This is what 87? Is that this year on this?
I thought that was later.
I thought it was too, but that's what's in my head. Oh no, I'm sorry. Early 2000s. I forget.
No.
No.
I mean, maybe there was a remix or something.
There might have been a re-release.
No, we're talking like 89.
Okay.
Or so. Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been when I started listening to
maybe
them.
even 90.
So this is which at that time, given how fast things were moving in the Northwest, might as well be a different time period. You know, that 5-year span between
84.
Minutemen and
Right.
here, you know,
Yeah,
in terms
right.
of punk music.
Right.
Now, this is a specific riot girl kind of punk rock genre. I don't know if economic class is implicated in the same way, but there's certainly a chip on someone's shoulder in this songwriting. So let's have a listen to this.
That girl thinks she's the queen of the neighborhood. She got the hottest drag in town. That girl, she holds her head up so high. I think I wanna be your best friend, yeah. Rebel girl, you are the queen of my world. Rebel girl, I think I wanna take you home. I wanna try on your clothes.
All right. So Bikini Kill is, I believe, from Olympia. I think that's right. How did you come to discover them? How did this track land with you? And why did you select it all of these decades later?
I took a class with Kathleen Hanna when I was at Evergreen.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I knew her, and I still, connect with her.
And we should say Kathleen Hanna is the front woman for the band. Yeah.
Lead singer, songwriter, person. So in like 91 when this came out, I mean, I was not even living in Olympia anymore, but the scene was kind of like starting up, and I went to their shows and knew them really well and was like really interested in that scene. But that was already kind of like post grunge. That was
Right.
like grunge had already kind of come and gone, kind of, or it had gone mainstream, by the time they kind of like came onto the scene. And but they were definitely enveloped into the whole world because of all the social connections that they had with, the folks that were involved with that. And so, yeah, it's all still kind of grunge in some way. I mean, as far as that whole grunge sound, it was, what was striking to me about that was just where that came from and who was doing it, and just the fact that in its earliest years, it didn't really have a name. It was just all punk rock,
Mm-hmm.
Until until around 1989 or so, when there was a tour that was associated with Sub Pop Records. Sub Pop was like the label that associated with some of these early groups that came to Britain, and there was a writer who heard that music and kind of gave it a label, and the label stuck. But before that, it was all just punky, American punk rock,
Mm-hmm.
kind of continuing into the late 80s. And again, the whole class situation I think is really interesting, because from my point of view and my vantage point, a lot of that music was, it was associated with college students who were going to Evergreen, and a lot of those kids were definitely not working class. I mean, they were coming from pretty well-off families, and that was, and it's an interesting kind of part of the story, I think. I mean, Kathleen Hanna, specifically, I think, and a lot of the folks that were involved with that were college folks who were pretty well off, mixing with working class kids also. Where should I go with
Well,
Yeah.
I want to know what then. I mean, I think you're probably right that there's some sort of interesting thing about kids of a certain ideological disposition gravitating towards music that is perhaps speaking about something that's not their experience, right? I mean, that happens, for every generation of new ones.
My favorite one, getting back to the Beatles, I think, would be like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and the stories, about their particular class environment. I mean, the Beatles were not just working class. I mean, they were like low working class. Whereas the Rolling Stones, who kind of had this, they wore the working class on their sleeves, but they were all kind of rich art school kids.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, that idea, I think, has been through popular music for a long time.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
But there's something about the sound here, regardless of the quote unquote authenticity of where it's coming from. There's something about the sound and relatedly the themes that seem interesting or important or animating for you. And then when we think about, as we'll talk about later on in this interview, Human Skab, there's something else about the sound in Human Skab that is also, I think, unrefined is probably a precise way of describing it.
Can we go there?
Sure, yeah. Would you like to play a Human Skab track, or would you like to just talk about them first?
Well, let me talk about them first, because what I want to say in relationship to what you're talking about is like when I was growing up and listening to music and like, again, kind of observing my father and his take on sound. And when I was taking lessons, guitar lessons, I was exposed to American blues music and, wanting to kind of recreate all those bendy notes on the guitar and those flatted thirds and just doing what was being done on the guitar with these blues artists that, again, my dad was like really plugged into, and he was really supportive of me exploring that. But then when I was taking lessons and also taking classes, in high school, learning about music theory and just realizing that conversations about all the in-between notes and all the rhythms that are going on there that were difficult to document in the kind of the classic music theory educational system, that these two terrains didn't come together in my young mind's eye the way I thought that they should. And that led me to being more attracted to that music also. And so maybe that's another kind of thread that takes me to the punk rock terrain as well, asking the question about, well, what is music really? And that led me to, this discipline that's very much associated with that question. And in ethnomusicology is like, what is music and what do people think music is? And how does music sit in people's lives? I'm giving you all that backstory because while I was taking classes at Evergreen, I would on occasion go to visit my very auntie who exposed me to the Beatles when I was 4 years old, who now has a family of her own and has this young boy named Travis, who is my cousin. And he came up to me once as I was visiting when he was like 7 years old or so, and he said, "Frankie, I've been writing songs. Can you and me can we form a band?" And I was like really intrigued by this question and also very supportive of the idea of it, because then I started to hear the kinds of things that he was coming up with, which he called literally African music, because it's music that you play with buckets and spoons. And in his, 7-year-old mind, it was like that's what African music was. It's like, very rhythmic and very percussive and drums and things that you play with buckets and spoons. And so, he kind of went with that and was calling it that. And And then he was writing songs. Well, not writing, but he was composing songs and remembering them. And so he's going to school and coming home from school with all kinds of stories and ideas about what teachers are up to and what life is like as a 7-year-old kid. And so there I was as a collector, wanting very much to collect the work of my young cousin Travis. And so I just started like encouraging him and recording him and recording him and recording him and recording him, and to the point where I had, 10, 20 hours worth of songs on cassette tape. And at that time also, I was associated with this radio station in Olympia. I was the music director, actually. And I was struck by all of the independent artists who at that time were putting out either singles or albums, or at that time also, the cassette culture, cassette world was also in full swing. And so I plugged into that and was a part of that, and then released some cassettes of Travis, who called himself the Human Skab, because that's really what he thought he was, because he was always falling down and he had scabs all over his elbows and such. He was literally a human scab. And putting out these recordings, and they caught on in the strangest of places, to the point where Spin Magazine did an article about us, and all kinds of local press, and then invitations to play for some of these bands that were coming from California and other places on their way to Seattle. And we would like go play with them. Did quite a few interesting gigs that way. There was a band called the Dead Kennedys who we opened up. We opened up for the Dead Kennedys.
That is incredidible.
That was like out of this world. There was this guy from somewhere in the Midwest. His name was David Thomas. The band was called Per Ubu. Per Ubu played in town. We opened up for them as well. So we had quite a local celebrity thing going on with that whole Human Skab project. And again, these were songs written by a little kid with his older cousin, me, and some of his friends and some of my friends, and just, again, banging on pots and pans and making a lot of noise that whereby all of our family, literally all of our family, to include his parents, all the other uncles and aunties and grandparents, and my parents, who were just all shaking their heads in disgust and asking the question, what on earth is going on here? What are you doing? And me just kind of reveling in that world also. So
you're reveling in it. You're enjoying this.
I was definitely enjoying.
You like the kind of eye poking of it all.
Yeah, I definitely liked the eye poking of it, and I remember even more so as I was editing these tapes and kind of putting things together and sequencing them, in terms of beginnings, middles, and ends of the of each sides of the tapes.
Curating.
The eye poking was a part of the curating. The curating was part of that eye poking. And to me, again, it was all punk rock. I mean, it was all punk rock to me. And so yeah, that was going on while all this kind of proto grunge stuff was also going on in Olympia. That included the Sub Pop Records phenomenon and Nirvana and the Bikini Kill people as well. So that there was something in the water in that place.
And I think we're talking about 1986.
Yep, 86, 87, 88-ish. Yeah.
Can we listen to Throwing Rocks at Windows?
Sure, yeah.
One day, me and my friends came home from school. And we was playing a game called Throwing Rocks at Windows. Me and my friends were all bad aims. But one day, my brother practiced really hard. And then when we played that game, shatter! The window was broken!
storytelling.
Travis is definitely storytelling, and I was and still am struck by the musicality of that song that no one else seemed to be, except other people's who were just generational people, but definitely the parents and everyone else in the family were like, what on earth are you doing? How can you say you're spending all your time doing this? And
His willingness to go there with his voice and texture and is like pretty great. Like
I agree. I think it's astonishingly great.
yeah. And I don't know where, I mean, you'd like to think that, young children, they don't need permission to be creative. But by the time that he's doing this, he's, 7 or so years old. He's been existing in a world that's been trying to stifle that energy. But yet he finds the strength of conviction to tell his story musically that that I'm a young parent, and I would love it if my child was this willing to commit to his expression.
And he had me to encourage him
So
and support him,
that-
and then again doing these live shows and him being on the radio and just like doing the cassettes and just getting the word out. I mean, all of that was reinforcing.
Right. Yeah, your presence, perhaps nurturing isn't the right word, but your presence
Allowing.
allowed, it gave it permission, it gave it a space where there otherwise might not be that space for it. Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, can we try to do something musically here? I don't know what exactly we're going to do here. Let's switch to our other camera angle. So if you wouldn't mind sort of moving your microphone this way and sort of standing up here, we are going to begin to mix these tracks. And I'm realizing now I think I gotta change the camera real quick. Okay. Okay, so given our conversation that we've been having about, that's your mic. You can just bring it up so you can, yeah. Given our conversation that we've been saying about maybe class, maybe some other stuff, I don't know, man. Out of these 10 tracks that are on here, and also we haven't talked about your relationship with Nirvana yet. So we'll talk about that in a bit, but you're also welcome to bring in Nirvana. With these 10 tracks here, could be Tanzanian music, it could be punk music, it could be Human Skab. What are some things that you think might be interesting to do musically, either going from one song to the next or layering one song on top of another song? And then once you have that musical idea, I will help you bring it to fruition.
Okay, so you want me to tell you what we're going to
Yeah.
start with?
Yeah, tell me what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's do something with Lucinda Williams starting, and then maybe we'll bring in track number 4. Let's do something with.
Okay,
let's
great.
see.
Those are different BPM,
Oh, okay.
but we could still they're wildly different BPM,
I
but
see.
we could maybe
let-
try to
let-
do that.
Shall
But
we,
we could
shall we
do-
look at the BPMs then for sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
so what
Okay,
we
that
could do
means-
is we could do the more contemporary 2025 Moboso. That's about the same BPM if you think that would work. Pawa.
with car. Okay, let's try that.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
but
so-
why not?
Well, it's also interesting, especially with East African music. It's like, I don't know, is that 95 BPM or is it 190 BPM?
I
Depending
see,
on
I
where
see,
you put the
I
time
see what
signature.
you-
Hey, this track, by the way, this Lucinda Williams track,
Hmm.
there's definitely social class in the eye, sort of the pastoral scenery here, but she doesn't have a chip on her shoulder. This is just sort of like ambiance, this track. So let's load this up, and you tell us what you think is a good area of the track to focus on, perhaps to loop or transition. So here, let's have a listen. Oh, let me bring it at tempo. So that's the original tempo right there.
Well, before her voice comes in, let's do something with that as far as the loop, just that opening guitar.
Sure. But when I realize I got to go to this part of my tech and turn off that. All right. So you're saying the loop at the beginning. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right? Yeah, just up to the point where she starts to sing. That's A track.
Yeah. Cool. Great. So I've set that up. If you look there at the decks, I've set that up with the red hot cue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So as soon as you press that, it's going to jump back there like a bookmark. And then we can even loop that. So go ahead and press that red. Okay, great. Now, yeah, and then if you let go, it stops playing. Yeah. So now you could set up a loop by hitting that number 4 that you see there in the upper left-hand corner. Yeah.
So while I'm...
Just hit it now. Great. So now 4 beats are looped. Go ahead and press the big play button, the flashing green. Yep. Oh, sorry, I should have said the flashing green. Okay, there you go. That one. Great. Now, if you want to extend the loop, you can hit that button right there. It doubles it, and that adds it.
Okay,
So you have looping on, doubling, and half.
Let's just keep that.
Okay, great.
Now let's match that with Embolso.
Okay, cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and dial this volume down on that track. It's still there, but let's really focus on the next track that we're bringing in. And so I've got this loaded up, and I've already got it kind of beat matched. Like I should have it at about the right. Now, I need to tell you, though, a lot of this East African music, or really just any popular music of this time was not beat track, like click tracked. So some of the earlier tracks aren't going to work so well because they ebb and flow a little bit.
Let's do Embolso because that's like...
This one's exactly. I noticed that it's like the beat grid is dead on. Cool. So this is at 97.5. Lucinda Williams is. I'm going to go ahead and move this fader to say 97.5. It'll be a little hotter, but that's fine. Cool. And then now you see there, it starts right there on the downbeat. So if you press play here at the appropriate time, it's going to launch right with it. Nice.
Okay, so likewise, let's do something with that before he starts to sing. What about now?
Okay, nice. All right, now I like this. This is that track. This is this track. And then you can play with EQ right here. Low, mid, high.
I want to change the keys if possible.
You can't change the key. Do you know what you want to do to the key?
I'm going to bring the Lucinda Williams down to match.
Okay, let's see. Okay, that's in 1B. We need to move to 12B.
Well, that mix kind of works.
I think it kind of works. Okay, now let me give you the next level here. With modern DJing equipment, we can isolate stems and take them out. So what if we kept the drums in the Tanzanian music, but we got rid of the instrumentals?
Explain to me how you did that.
Magic technology, dude. I just pressed the instrument button.
But how do we know that that's an instrument?
Oh, the computer is thinking about what's a voice and what's a drum, and it yeah, that's the state of technology now, man.
Is there software doing that?
It's the software that's on the computer. Yeah, but we are now at the stage that even with streaming audio, it's taking in music just live on the fly. It has not pre-analyzed it, and it's able to use an algorithm that's arguably trained on contemporary pop music, so it doesn't work with some things like old Benny Goodman. You can't dial out the clarinet and have it work perfectly. But this is working out pretty well without too many artifacts. So, but maybe you want Lucinda Williams singing on top of this. I'm gonna try to put it back in time.
That's the instrument. Let's take this. Wait till the vocals comes up.
Yeah. And you can do the same thing with Lucinda Williams. Now, granted, she's not singing at this point, but you could have her sing on top of this.
I want to do. Wait, what happened?
Cool. We're going to go back to the beginning.
Okay. Oh, without the voice.
Yeah, but turn the voice. You can turn the voice on. Just hit that green button.
Those are out of sync.
I've got the timing lined up. I think that's kind of what I'm doing here.
Yeah, it touches them. It's kind of low.
Forgot she was turned down. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. What would it be like for Lucinda Williams to sing on top?
Okay.
It's going to sound a little bit weird because we changed the key of her voice so much, but let's actually go back to the home key. It's not going to be the same, but I think it'll sound better. We're only one step away on the circle of fifths different. So let's introduce this track. We're going to let it sort of run its course. Blue is the chorus. So when you're ready, you can bring in Lucinda Williams by hitting blue and then dial this out. Dial out the vocals. So you see what I mean? You're going to take the vocals out here, and then you're essentially having Lucinda Williams on top of this instrument whenever you feel like it's the right time. So then you press play. Yeah, so now it's queued up at the right spot, and then when you're ready, hit that green play button. I kind of like them singing at the same time, actually. That mandolin, maybe you're making some sort of connection between Appalachian mandolin and African instrumental music. Yeah, we have to work on the timing a little bit here.
was fun. Mm-hmm.
I think those two worked out pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool. You want to take a seat again here?
Sure. So matching the BPMs.
Yeah, there's some more we can do to refine that, but I think. Okay. Hey, would you mind telling me a little bit about? I called some friends of mine that knew you back when they were doc students here, and they said to ask you. Oh gosh, there was a few things. One was maybe you dressed up in a shark outfit. There's a shark outfit story, and then there was a story of something about Kurt Cobain, Fela Kuti, and then maybe you saw Fela Kuti with Kurt Cobain. I'm not quite sure. So anyway, this is your open invitation to riff on you being at a specific place on Earth at a specific point of time that was so generative musically.
Okay, the shark story. Let's just get that out of the way. That was Dr. Michael Backen and I put an impromptu musical ensemble together around 2010 or so that was led by Michael's son Isaac when he was about 7 or 8 years old. And he was really into sharks, and he wrote a song about sharks. And he came to Dad and said, "Dad, I have a song about sharks." And I don't really know exactly how I got involved, but we said, let's do something. And so we put together a song and performed it for a class or 2 or 3 in Dagnani, just across the hall here.
Oh, that's great. This seems somewhat similar to Travis, and I'm thinking specifically the my favorite song that I've heard so far from Human Skab, and I forget the name of it, but the dinosaur one. That one's great.
I don't remember which dinosaur song it is, but there's here's what I don't remember. There's the actual the first dinosaur version, and then there's the film story and the dinosaur song there. How that connects to Travis, I mean, other than just the fact that it was Isaac when he was doing this when he was young,
like kids making stories. Kids are into sharks. Kids are into dinosaurs.
Okay, sharks.
Let's write some stories about it.
I made some connection. I see the connection there. Yeah. So maybe I was working on that connection, but it really was more about dad and son kind of like doing music together, and I was there, supporting it, and I really hope you didn't find like a video version of that.
Oh gosh, I didn't look, but now I'm going to. Now that you said that.
We'll have to touch base and kind of try to figure out where that might be. It's on YouTube someplace.
Okay, great. So then, Kurt Cobain, you were around at that time. Did you know the guy?
Yeah, I knew Kurt, and I have to say that I knew him in several instances. I mean, one instance was that he was a DJ at this radio station where I was working, and he had a late show where he played some really interesting music, and the riffing a little bit here, trying to remember exactly what it was he was doing. He had a live show, kind of like what we just did here with live DJ sounds, where he would spin records at different speeds and sometimes upside down and backwards, together with cassettes and together with 45s and together with open mic singing, and he would call his friends in, and so at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning or a Sunday night, for 3 hours, he would just do these sessions, and they were quite interesting. And he was doing that like from around 1987, 1988, around 2 years before he went on to other things. So I knew him in that context. I knew him when he used to hang out at Evergreen. There was a place in front of the library that was affectionately known as Red Square, because this school, Evergreen, was just a hotbed for left-wing socialist ideology and behavior, quote unquote. And so it was affectionately known as Red Square, both by the people who hated that place and the people who loved it as well. So he used to hang out there. And I remember him playing hacky sack with his friends, just hanging out there. He wasn't a student. He was just like this guy who came up from Aberdeen, which was about an hour away by car, and come and hang out. And then he later moved to Olympia. And so I knew him in that context. And for a long time, I didn't even know his name. I just knew him as Punk Rock Kurt. And then later that became Punk Rock Kurt who wears a dress. That was like what we were calling him. And because Evergreen is and was a very progressive place, but for a man or a male to wear a dress was like a rather unique sort of thing to do at that time in history.
Yeah.
And you just kind of stuck as an affectionate name because he that's what he was wearing.
Mm-hmm.
And let me connect that to something else here, and that is that that would have been like 1988 or so, and then 89. After I graduated, I went to East Africa for the first time, where I did a gig where I was teaching high school in a village. I did that for 2 years. And I remember very specifically, I had been dating someone who was like sending me these tapes that I was playing on my Walkman. And one of the things that she sent me was Nirvana, this band called Nirvana. And I didn't know who this was, but I was obsessed with it. And I was like playing Nirvana like all the time. It was like one of either the first record or the second record. And I'd go for long walks where I was teaching and just listen to this music constantly. And then when I came home around 92 or so, I remember going to Heathrow Airport and like looking through the magazines and then seeing Punk Rock Kurt who wears a dress on the cover of this magazine.
So I'm trying to pull this up. I've never done this on my show before.
Called The Face. And I was like, wait a minute, I know this guy. Wait, what? Nirvana? Are you kidding me? What on earth? And so I made the connection in this like kind of a late sensibility that he was this person who I remember from back in those days. And here he was on the cover of this magazine, and he was in this band that I was obsessed with. So there's that story.
Great. I finally got that picture pulled up on the screen.
Right.
Boom.
Yeah.
I remember this.
Do you?
Yeah. And I also remember being like gender troubled, confused by it. Like, yeah, this is very transgressive. I mean, it's funny to think that there was a time when this was so, I mean, it certainly wasn't offensive to me. I would have been like 10 years old at the time.
Right.
It wasn't offensive. It was just like a little bit like, wait, what? No, you can just do that. And I similarly hung out with hacky sack playing. I mean, some of my dude friends would wear skirts, to intentionally be provocative.
Yeah. And then I remember seeing like a year later or so when In Bloom came out, the video In Bloom, and there he was, Kurt, Punk Rock Kurt in this dress in that video as well. So I mean, there was like a thread that he was kind of exercising, and he was doing that in the late '80s as well.
Yeah,
with his hacky sack friends. I have to say this. I mean, I realize that this is probably going to reach some people. There was something about Kurt that really struck me as being kind of disturbing when I was interacting with him, and that was that he didn't seem to have the same kinds of filters that other people that I knew have in terms of just how he expressed himself. It just seemed like he was constantly just sort of like mumbly, nonstop talking. talking to himself, whatever stream of thought was on his brain. He was just sort of a voicing in some way. And that really struck me about Kurt. And I wasn't judgmental about it, but I just didn't quite know what to make of it. Just that constant kind of stream of thought. I know that there was a film, that was a fiction film that came out around 2000 or so called Last Days. The filmmaker, I can't remember exactly who that was, but this film portrayed, the last 2 weeks of Kurt Cobain's life. And I was struck by it because they clearly did their research, and because the actor that, played Kurt was doing that thing that Kurt did, which was this constant kind of stream of thought, talking. So I was really pleased that whoever put that film together, they did their homework in kind of just sorting out, his background, how he was personally.
Yeah. How has it been like for you over the last, 20, 30 years of your both just life as a musician on the planet, but then also as a scholar, being someone who just happened to be around one of the most famous musicians of the 20th century?
I still haven't, I haven't found myself really kind of bridging those two experiences in the sense of, like you say, on one hand, I was obsessed with this sound, even though I didn't know who it was.
Mhm.
And I was so into that sound. And then just my experience of having known, Kurt briefly. He was just a guy. He was just a dude.
Punk rock Kurt.
Punk rock Kurt. He was kind of troubled and talked to himself like full time, just constantly talking. Is that Kurt looking at? Just like that kind of stuff. Which
Yeah.
when you and then when you look at the text, look at the lyrics of those songs.
Well,
they're
that's-
they're so mumbly in that way.
Yeah,
Right?
I haven't studied him or
Yeah.
Nirvana to know that this was a part of his personality, but I grew up with that music, and it's like this is just mumbly stream of consciousness.
Mumbly stream of consciousness for sure. That he just went there with a soundtrack and was a little bit more pronounced, but it was the same thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, is there something about you seeing Fela Kuti with him?
Yeah, okay, this was like 1988 or so, and Fela Kuti, this rather well-known Nigerian superstar, who at that time, before he passed away, was becoming, relatively well-known. And I remember that there was a concert that was advertised in Seattle, and they were talking about Fela Kuti. Fela Kuti is freshly released from prison in Nigeria, and now he's on tour with his 27 wives, and that was the whole spiel and shtick about him. And talking about Fela, there's just a long
Right.
background we have to kind of go into in terms of what he was up to as a revolutionary artist. And I had heard some of that music again because of the radio station I was involved with, and so I wanted to go, and so I organized a van trip to go see Fela, and organized the van, and I bought like a block of tickets, and so I sold the tickets to friends and people that I knew, and I sold the ticket to Kurt. So Kurt came along with us, and we all sat together at 12 of us at this Fela show, kind of in the fourth row or so. And the story that I have to tell is that these songs that Fela was performing, they were long, like 12 minutes,
Right.
19 minutes in some cases, and kind of like jam sessions. And he was playing in this place called the Seattle Coliseum, which no longer exists, but it was a basketball arena that didn't have seats on the floor. And so they put, for this show and for other shows too, probably they put seats on the floor, like folding chairs. And so we were sitting like in a pretty close area, like third or fourth row or so. And there's this stadium full of mostly white people. And that's a whole nother story as to like race in terms of why all these white people were at the Fela Kuti show. And I think that Fela was probably pretty perplexed by that as well. Just maybe he was expecting there to be like a black audience, and they weren't, especially in Seattle. So yeah, there's all these white people at the show and sitting, you know, politely in their chairs. And the first tune goes by and it's like 9 minutes. The second tune goes by and there's like another 9 minutes or so. And people are kind of sitting, fidgeting in their audience. And then by the third tune, punk rock Kurt, who wears a dress, kind of ceremoniously stands up and then folds his chair and starts dancing in place in this place where we're playing. And Fela was like right there, you know, kind of pointing at him and grinning ear to ear. And then immediately this just kind of set off a chain reaction with the entire audience. And everyone is putting their folding chairs aside and then dancing in place. And so that always struck me, and it struck me because it was Kurt who started it, right? And so there was like a like-minded kind of sensibility of knowing, you know, just what to do in that place, in that time, that struck me about Kurt.
Yeah.
He was an intuitive soul who knew just what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. You're talking about the oddness of all of these presumably upper middle class white kids going to go see Fela Kuti. I have to say that for myself, as someone like in the late 90s, I got exposed to steel band and I was way into it. I mean, so much so that I took every world music ensemble here at Florida State. I got a double major in anthropology, and my thought was that I would go on to get a master's degree in ethnomusicology. At some point, I decided not to do that, and I went into education instead. I was really into it. And
Double major in anthropology.
yeah, I had a BA in music and anthropology.
You took courses with who?
Professor Grindal.
Yeah.
I was into the social stuff. I wasn't into all the monkeys.
Joseph Hellwang.
No,
maybe not quite yet. Yeah.
There was a younger guy. Last name starts with an E. Ecuadorian scholar.
Yeah. He's moved on. Right. It'll come to us.
Yeah, this would have been late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then during my master's degree, I took a few classes in your department with Michael. And I was kind of interested in that, right? My dissertation was about multiculturalism in education, music education. And I did steel band for a while. I threw myself at it. I started a sheet music publishing company. I had very strong opinions about things. And in hindsight, now several decades removed from that, I'm not sure if I really trust my reasons for being into that stuff. I think a lot of it was motivated by a sense of escape from upper middle class whiteness. And I haven't really found like a way to continue with certain kinds of music that feels like authentic to myself or motivated by, you know, like intentions that seem like good other than trying to like project onto a musical genre. Is that making sense?
No, yeah, I'm definitely following. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we all have, you know, journeys that we go on in relationship to the music that we listen to and that we love, and revelations that we have about what our processes are in terms as to why we like this music, and then kind of second thoughts and kind of wondering about, you know, how all of this connects to our own, social backgrounds and the world that we live in, you know, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know if I ever bridged that that gap for myself. I mean, I certainly fell in love with steel band, and there's lots of steel band music and older calypso that I still listen to. And it's not as though I feel like it's not my music to enjoy. I haven't been able to find like a new relationship to it that extends beyond me being a teacher of it.
No, I see. That makes sense. I'm trying to think of an analogy with my own.
And you don't have to. You're not my musical therapist. You're not responsible.
No, I like the idea of music therapy in this way for sure. And your questions with me about my father
exactly. This is really turning into
there. No, it was really interesting.
Well, so here's a question to you, and I don't say this to mean that there's some sort of parity between your interest in Tanzanian music and my at once burgeoning interest in steel band. But I do want to know about your relationship to the field. What the heck the field means. If I understand it, you teach a field work class, so you perhaps are, well suited to answer this question. And I'm interested in how your relationship to the field has evolved over time, and then also how musicology and ethnomusicology's relationship to the field has also evolved.
Right. I'm no longer teaching that fieldwork course, but I definitely teach fieldwork in the courses that I teach. Fieldwork per se is again this kind of terrain of classic ethnomusicology in the sense of, and it was tied to the formal anthropological Margaret Mead style endeavor of Herskovits endeavor, Boasian endeavor to Malinowski endeavor to go forth into an unknown world and place yourself in this place for an extended period of time as a way of knowledge gaining. And so the ethnomusicology people followed that in anthropology and did that and have done that and continue to do that, in some degree. And the idea was one of, definitely a kind of Western gaze going forth into faraway places and settling in someplace and coming back, with a focus on coming back and framing the knowledge that was learned in those spaces for Western audiences. And, Margaret Mead, I think, was most famously associated with that. And she, up until her dying days, she saw the value of doing that sort of thing in terms of, going to Bali and going to Papua New Guinea and coming back with knowledge about child rearing, and that had an audience in the boomer generation of the 1960s in terms of child rearing and alternative views on child rearing and a focus in that regard. And so anthropology in that classic sense, and ethnomusicology, presumably has always kind of been a part of that particular model in some way. But all of that has been, the carpet has been pulled from underneath it and has changed significantly, especially in the past 35 years or so. Certainly for as long as I've been doing this, the changes have been going on. And the model has changed. And so some people do that, to in quite an extensive way. That meaning, spending, lengthy periods of time in the field, so to speak. And then others are doing it in terms of, 2 weeks here or a month there or a year there, for continuous periods of life. And others are not doing any kind of like far away place field work at all, but, field being, the music where they are, music where we are, and looking at music in our own backyard, so to speak. And all of that is relevant and relative to, how we should be thinking about music. As far as my own experience in that regard, in a way, because I was trained in kind of the old school method, I followed the old school method, but I've also subverted it in the sense of, in my own kind of life arc trajectory, I think of that place, not even that place, meaning East African musical worlds, as not the field, but my primary home. I mean, that's literally my home. I mean, it's like really where I kind of think about and center myself on so many levels. And And that's taken, that's been a 35-year arc to the point, now where I'm thinking about retirement, and that is where I'm going to retire. So my arc in terms of the field and in terms of home, has been my own. That again kind of followed that model, but has also subverted it.
It's so you're saying that it's been subverted because your relationship to this place has evolved over decades, as you would expect.
Absolutely, and transformed, just over time.
But it also seems to me, as an outsider to the field of anthropology,
Yeah.
field of musicology, that even though you began investigating East Africa in this sort of classic ethnographic sense, you're also doing just like kind of weird stuff with like Human Skab, and so it's also, you've subverted it by, and it also, it doesn't even seem like you've evolved with the field in that way. You seem to have whole cloth done this somewhat wild enterprise of hanging out with your cousin and doing a documentary about him and placing that within musicology. That seems to be odd, meaning that it's not common. That is an extension of the field that goes beyond you becoming really familiar with the place that you spent decades studying. You've also extended musicology to include areas of everyday musical life that are novel.
You have a remarkable intuitive and observational sensibility. Again, I'm really pleased and astonished
Thank
to
you.
have this conversation. And then the other thing I haven't talked about, maybe that you touched base on a little bit, was another level of documentation, including filmmaking.
Right.
So the filmmaking thing was another thing that I've done in the past 15 years or so, very intensively, and that ties in with everything that you're saying as well, I think. Let's see, where do I go with that?
This novel framing of the field that you have done through some of your ethnography, including Human Skab, that seems to be an extension of the field into areas that, I'm not saying, I don't know the field of anthropology, ethnomusicology enough to say this, but it seems unique, rare.
Um, and again, when I'm looking at my own life arc, there was definitely kind of like this classic timeline in the sense of, going to the field and also studying kind of the classic ethnographic musics, meaning, I studied, music and labor, work music, folk work music, and wrote a book about that, did my dissertation work on that. However, while I was doing that, I was constantly struck and constantly shutting down and wanting to do something else, which was to engage with the popular music scene of this place. But I didn't do that until much later. So that might also be a transformation or a progression or whatever in my own career, was like kind of moving into popular music, which has then moved from different histories of popular music to the current, which we played earlier, the Emboso cut, which is from just this year, and having an interest in all of these contemporary forms and popular music forms, and as part of my field work that ties back in some way to my interest in pop music from when I was a kid.
But it almost seems like you were reluctant to engage in that. There's a certain kind of conservatism to the way that you approached your career at the beginning, even though you're someone who has expressed an interest in eye poking. There's like this iconoclasm is something that maybe is something that you're into, but yet when it came to ethnomusicology, at least for the first however many years of your career, you were perhaps reluctant to engage in that.
Yeah, I was reluctant Maybe because I I could not imagine. I didn't have, nor could I imagine, a model for how to study popular music um, in an ethnomusicological way. That there was one or two people doing that, but I wasn't really engaging with that. Though I think I wanted to, but once I gotten started on the whole, um, my interest in music and labor, which was quite extensive. Once I got started, I couldn't really just stop and do something else. Though I was kind of like, um, that was kind of like my recreational um, interest was popular music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then by the time that I did the Human Skab film, I was shifting now into that popular music world that I had a long interest in from around 2010 or so. So we're talking 16 years ago. That I moved more formally into the study of the history of popular music in East Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great, great. And now, as you say that you're approaching retirement, at some point in the future, it seems like musicology and ethnomusicology has been cracked open. You said a moment ago about your work with media and including media in musicology. I shall say my wife is an anthropologist, and she does a lot of stuff with visual anthropology. So I've thought about this a little bit. I think she's on the Journal of Visual Anthropology or something. And so she's told me about some of this and how the visual stuff, it's not as though it's excluded but it's separate because you have, I imagine musicology is like this. You have this core classic Margaret Mead kind of, this is what the field is. And then you have people doing weird stuff with media that like, yeah, it's accepted, but it's not as though it's elevated. So I guess my question is how's the trajectory of doing media stuff been for you personally, but then also within the field generally?
Well, getting back to the field's acceptance of multimedia documentation and production of products, so to speak, that has not been accepted, and that's part of the problem in terms of um, thinking in terms of the classic sense of tenure and tenure track,
Right.
and what's acceptable work. That in the past 10 years or so, there's been a lot of opportunity for people who are doing filmmaking to have their work accepted, so they can kind of put their foot into those fields and continue teaching as mid-level and more mature researchers and teachers. But that's been a long track. And that has been part of the problem, I think, is just that those opportunities have not been there until most recently. And getting back to the comparison of anthropology, though ethnomusicology and anthropology are entwined in so many ways, I would have to say that like when I go to the American Anthropological Association AAA meetings, they shut down an entire room with a theater and with really good sound for 5 days from Wednesday morning all the way until Sunday, where they show nothing but films, and you can just like kind of wander away from all the blah 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 papers and kind of wander into these spaces and just kind of chill out and hang out and watch ethnographic films, whatever that means. Um, and and sometimes it's like 70 or 80 films, and then they have someone who's on hand who can talk about the film. Sometimes the filmmakers are there, and there's a celebration of filmmaking that's above and beyond anything I've seen in ethnomusicology, which in a way, we in ethnomusicology are always talking about our relationship with anthropology, and we're talking about how we're kind of like somehow, you know, 10 years behind them in terms of kind of the theoretical angles that they come up with. But you would think, or at least I would think, that in the terrain of audio-visual documentation, we would be showing them how to do this, but we're just like not even on the same planet, and we're not doing anything at all. I mean, it's really hard pressed to see any more than like one film at a musicology conference or at the musicology conference. You just don't see them at all. And it's the system is just kind of set up not to support that.
Mm. It's a shame for a
Yeah.
field that is media rich.
You
It's
would-
the
you-
entire.
You would
You know?
think that we would just be like, forging ahead and doing all kinds of crazy things, but no, it just hasn't been done.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay, then I want to pivot here, and you've been very gracious with your time, but
Thank you
I've
so
only
much.
but I've only got you for 24 more minutes, so I want to move on to Human Skab here, and I'll just go ahead and throw out a few themes that I'm interested in pursuing, and then we can kind of maybe watch a few clips. The one theme is your relationship with Travis. You describe him. Oh, by the way, I knew about Human Skab because I got my PhD in 2012, and I was friends with all those people in ethno. So I knew about. I got this at the library yesterday, and I watched it, and I went down there, and they were like, we don't know where this is. It's on their display case. So it took me about 10 minutes. I had to go to the back room, get the special key, get whatever. Anyway, and I love this this handwritten. Yeah, and I knew Brett. Like I knew him. I've shared probably many beers with Brett. Anyway, so I watched this in obviously Travis as the central character within the film. But with that is your relationship with Travis. He's described, I think, on this jacket as an outlaw musician, which is an awesome term, a great term. It applies to a lot of people. I think there's a difference between outlaw and outsider, and I'm kind of wondering a little bit about outsider. And I got to say, I'm wondering this because of me and my brother. My brother, his name is Parker. He's local. I'm from Tallahassee, so I grew up here. My brother grew up here, and he was the lead singer of a death metal band called Darth Vader's Church, which rose to some acclaim, and they're in some history books as being important in a certain type of metal. Growing up, I mean, it's a little bit different. I'm younger than he is, but growing up, he was going on tour in Europe, and he was getting album deals and stuff, and it was like, but now he's a house painter. And when he's not painting houses, because he's getting kind of up there in years, so he can't get on the ladder as much as he used to. He's just in his workshop being like a mad scientist. He's like programming computers and soldering things and trying to build the perfect tube amp. And he's quite troubled. Like there's something about the way that he engages with the world that's not quite right. And so when I was watching Travis and seeing his like, I mean, the guy is like totally fast. Like there's the one scene that I liked is this scene about the soda can. And he's just talking about something, and then this kid rides the bike, and he just immediately segues into that, and he makes a point about the world and society that is so much larger and more abstract than this narrow conversation that you and Brett were likely having with him at that moment. He seems very interested in extending the conversation to these much larger metaphysical connections. And my brother is the same way, and it's troubled him. He's had a hard time existing in the world because he's more focused on the inconsistencies of these abstract thoughts and how it's not grounded in connection with humans. And there's one, I'll see if I can pull it up here. We'll see if I have my time codes correct here. Oh yeah, 127:34. Let's see if I can scan through here. How long has it been since you've seen this? This movie?
3 or 4 years, maybe. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to this next scene. I got to make sure all my. Okay. Great. Let's listen to this.
The more you listen to what I have to say, the more sane I will sound to you. Because if you just listen to a second, like the guy that interviewed me from the Weekly Volcano the other day, he said, you know, I just want to say something before we get started, and I really don't want to offend you. I was like, dude, offend away. And he said, you seem to be like a little bit crazy. And then when he actually wrote the article, he described my music as psychotic, apocalyptic, nuclear holocaust, experimental punk, or something like that. And I just think that I'm not a fucking idiot, and I'm not crazy. At least I'm not crazy in terms of what I think is really going on or what I think is true. I might have some chemical imbalances. You know, my adrenaline might kick in when leaves blow on the fucking ground behind me, or when I hear a chain rattle or metal hit metal. But but I'm not delusional. I'm not.
Man, that's intense, my brother could have just as easily have said that. You know, I'm not crazy. You know, it's like, have you seen this world? This world is insane. It's not me. Like sure, I might not be able to fit in that well, but like you're the one who's making the weird choice to ignore how dumb and corrupt the world is to exist within it. So I hope this isn't too intense of a question for you, but here's somebody who you probably love very much. You know, I'm certainly not in the business of diagnosing. You have an interest in outsiderness, iconoclasm. What has it? And you nurtured his initial musical expression. What is the connection between him, his innate expressive qualities, his likely quite sensitive view of the world, and how it manifests into his musical expression?
Right. Well, the story about Travis that I can share is that it has like two major parts in terms of how I documented him. And so the first part was when he was a kid and my interactions with him and supporting his musical interests and world. And then taking a break from the time he was 10 years old up until the time when he was like 35, you know, when we made this film. So 25 years later. And in the interim, and this is probably the crux of getting at your question, in the interim, he became an Army veteran. And it's talked about a little bit in the film, but there's much more of a backstory here in the sense that what he was doing when he was 17 years old, and that was that he was a what they call a combat interpreter. And so he was sent to, he worked in Lebanon, and he worked in Afghanistan, and he worked in Kosovo, where he was an Arabic translator. So he went to language school for 2 years, learned Arabic, and then he was a combat interrogator. Literally, you know, just asking questions like, "Okay, motherfucker, where's Osama hiding?" You know, these kinds of questions under duress, meaning not him under duress, but the people he's interviewing. That was his job. And so he did that for 6 years. And then when he got out, he went back into that world where he worked as a security guard at the embassy, both in Iraq and also in Afghanistan. So he left and then went back into that world. And so at this point in 2010. It'd been a couple years since he'd stopped doing that, but he had been affected by all of that. And then my connection there, with both with the music and also the fact that he's my cousin, is that I'm also a veteran. From when I was 17 until 23 or so, I was in the service, and so I was not a combat veteran, but I connected to him on that level, and his, in the part 2 of the story, that is when we made this film, I wanted that to be, a part of the, one of the threads that we uncovered. And we did unpack that, to some degree in the film, but the real crux of the film was the fact that we, quote unquote, got the band back together and then kind of reworked, some of these songs that he did when he was 10 and kind of turned them into like heavy metal songs. And I had a grad student at that time who was really interested in this whole thing, and he was involved in the making of the film as well. That was Brett Woods. So we went to Elma, where Travis was, and worked with him for like 3 weeks and kind of re-recorded these songs. And he had booked this tour where we played all these gigs, like all over Seattle and Olympia and various places. We played like 12 gigs on this Human Skab reunion tour, which we filmed. And then there was kind of an addendum to that whole project, and that was where Travis, after the tour, he goes through a divorce, and then he kind of runs away to New Mexico, where he was like living on the Navajo Indian reservation in that area, and we just went to find him and to continue talking with him about his career and his life, and a lot of other things kind of came up as well in that connection. So the film, in a way, touches upon the whole childhood experience. It talks about that music, and then talks about his transition into an adult, and talks about his wartime experiences, but also the making of music and the healing properties of music for him as a process, as an adult, and at the same time, like, looking at these older songs and kind of like unpacking them and kind of playing with them, and what I always noticed with Travis throughout is that his sense of humor was like consistent and constant throughout. He always had that humor that kind of like was very explicit and very much a part of how he is. And he wrote to me yesterday, and he wrote to tell me that his son, who is now like 16 years old, has been accepted to go to summer school in Kenya, in East Africa, this coming summer, where he's going to go to the place in Kenya where the runners train. And so Kenya, as a country, is really well known for their runners who go into all these international competitions, to include the Olympics and so many others, and they're always winning first and second place. And they all come specifically from this one area where the altitude is like 2 or 3 miles above sea level, and it's where they train. It's where they're from. It's where they train. And so apparently they've built some center, and so Travis's son is going to go this summer to that school, and Travis is going to go with them. So Travis was reaching out to me and asking me, "Are you going to be in that area? We have to get the band back together."
Yeah, to play African music.
That's exactly what he said.
Did he really?
It's exactly what he said. Yeah. So that's by sense of humor. He's connecting in that way.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I have to say this, that there was something else that Brett and I picked up in the filmmaking process, and that was the uncanny things that we came across in recording the newer versions of these older songs, and how these older songs, in a way, they kind of prophesied or predicted like where Travis might be in 15 or 20 years. And so, for instance, he has this song called mining the radiation, which is just this
I was so curious about that.
mining the radiation, where he's like talking about like digging into this mountain and they get into the radiation and he's
Yeah.
affected by the radiation and he's finding the radiation. I mean, it's like, who knows where he got this? He was really into
Russia, Cold War stuff.
and
Yeah.
He-Man cartoons, and that was like part of his
Yeah.
world. But where it connects with Travis as an adult is that he was in Kosovo in the late 90s, whereby he was exposed to radiation, and all of those soldiers then, like 20 years later, like circa 2015 or so, were given, complete full retirement awards because of their exposure to
Irradiated munitions.
exactly
Yeah.
irradiated irradiated musicians.
Oh, that's a great name for a band.
Irradiated
He
musicians.
should do that.
Yeah, irradiated munitions, and so it took them a while to make that award explicit. But then, so he's now fully retired as a veteran and receiving those funds for life, and that probably had an effect on him. I mean, just in terms of just psychologically and mentally, just in terms of how he is and who he is, in terms of the connection to kind of a troubled artist.
Yeah. But and I don't mean to project my brother entirely onto this story, but in Travis's case, there's explicit events in his life that have led to PTSD and trauma. But there seems to be something that's sensitive about him. By sensitive, I mean sensing the world and understanding things in nuanced, perhaps different ways than others, that predates that trauma. I mean, you see his stage performances when he was like 7 or 8, and it's like, this kid is on like another planet.
Absolutely, and I recognize that, and that was always what my idea about Travis was, that the rest of the family didn't quite get.
He's playing these potsy pants too loud.
He was just a bratty kid who needed to be spanked. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really all that was.
Yeah. It was very joyful to watch that movie. I have another, and sadly probably the last question that we have time for here. Another. So my brother, as I said, is a musician. My dad was a musician, and our uncle was a musician, and my Uncle Larry. They were my dad and my Uncle Larry were like honky tonk kind of guys. And my Uncle Larry would say things like, you teaching your kids about theory over there? Because all you need to let them know is that you got the 1 chord, the 2 chord, and the 3 chord, right? It's G is the 1 chord, C is the 2 chord, and D is the 3rd chord. And I'm like, man, that is true. Like you only need those. Sometimes there's a 4 chord, and that's going to be like A minor.
I don't know where that comes from, but in country music, that seems to be a thing. The 1, 2, 3, which is really the 1, 4, 5, but it's a 1, 2. They
It
call it
happens
the 1,
first.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. And so he would always make fun of me. It's like, oh, you're talking about all this other stuff, and so my uncle and my dad would sometimes, pester me. They'd be like, oh, do you know about so-and-so? And I'm like, I've never heard of them. They're like, how do you not know about so-and-so? They're a, world famous country music. Anyway, my brother is a little bit like that. and so he'll jest with me a lot, and he'll oftentimes accuse me of not deserving my doctorate because I don't know about, A, B, and C. And I saw this, let me go to this scene here. I saw this, and I love how Travis reaches for an essay that you wrote.
One time I looked up, I saw a bald eagle flying in the air. I know it was a symbol of courage, but I said to myself, nobody was looking.
I don't know, man.
Yes, my
We're
will.
playing a gig tomorrow, man, and we're
Yeah. Remember the essay in the thing?
The essay in the thing.
This is is what
the
we
liner
do.
notes. Heather, he's got me draped in an American flag. He's trying to talk me into wearing a bald eagle mask and like flapping around on the stage while he emerges from beneath my wings to sing the song. Okay, here
goes
we
and
are.
gets it.
One day, Travis asked me, Frank, when are we going to have a concert? A concert? Yeah, in an arena. I tried to explain to him that I didn't think we were quite ready for the arena circuit, since we had never played live before. This didn't quite register, and he continued to ask about it. As luck would have it, however,
That's what I'm doing.
we soon thereafter were invited to play the Fringe Festival at the theater in Olympia. We opened for David Thomas of Perubu, but we never got a chance to see him play that night because by the time they came on stage, it was past Travis's bedtime. I told Travis about the show, and he immediately wanted to know how much we would be paid. I remember asking Travis just 3 hours before the show if he didn't think we should practice. No, he said. So, like, do you know what songs we're going to do? Uh-huh.
Okay.
He's what a few things I like about this. One is he's just like calling out your nerdy bullshit. You fucking Poindexter, you know, like he takes your language and he's like, oh, you know, Mr. Professor with your whatever. And then just so uptight, man, just relax. Like it's going to be fine. Exactly. And Alex Love, is that his name? Is that right? Did I get that right?
Matt.
Oh, Matt. Sorry.
Matt
yeah.
Love.
Matt
Yeah.
Love. Yeah. He seems to be sharing your sentiment there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I love that. I love that sort of tongue-in-cheekness, and it's such a special relationship with someone who's important to you that's able to poke you in that way. And I don't know if I'm prepared to offer like a whole summary of what I've come to understand about you and your career, but there seems to be a thread, this outsiderness that relates to your time in 86, 88, Evergreen, this emerging punk grunge scene that transcends like your entire career. That's kind of fun. What a fun career. Is that an accurate, you think, summary?
In this moment, I think you're probably right. I'm just trying to think of all the connecting tissues here that include all of my work in East Africa.
Let me say,
sorry.
Yeah, let me say one more thing about that. So I spent a week or two in Dar in 2014 maybe. A friend of mine's from Dar es Salaam, and so I spent some time with her.
In 2014.
2014, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Doing what?
Oh gosh, we spent 5 days in Zanzibar. We did a safari, and then we just stayed at her family's house there, going to Banda's, watching the World Cup.
The World Cup in Dar.
Yeah,
I was there.
I was in Zanzibar.
Oh, you were in Zanzibar
for the World Cup.
Okay,
I guess
yeah.
no, I would have been in Dar. Yeah, so she's a Smiley. So we were at the big Smiley Center there, watching. Yeah, I watched it also in Dar. Yeah.
I was in Dar for the World Cup in 2014. Yeah,
I thought I recognized you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
That's great.
I probably saw you at that bar.
Probably, yeah. And I remember being in Zanzibar for I think it was the U.S. Ghana game, which is always contentious. And I was definitely the only American there, the only white person. And my friends that I was with are Tanzanian Canadian. And U.S. ended up losing that game. And it didn't become dangerous, but people at that bar loved just yelling at me and ribbing me during that loss to Ghana. That's a very fond memory.
What I remember the most from that World Cup was the Germany-Brazil game, which I saw in Dar.
Okay,
Yeah,
I saw it
yeah.
in Rio.
You saw it in Rio. Oh, God.
That was amazing. That I mean, oh gosh,
If anybody listening, you don't know what we're talking about, it's on YouTube.
it's oh my gosh, man,
Brazil versus Germany 2014. It's like what
8-1.
what a game. My
Yeah.
God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was it. Yeah, it's bad to say, but I was so happy to be in Rio for that, to be there for that moment, to observe it, and just seeing the world around me collapse. I mean, again, it's a little bit dark, but like I didn't have any investments in Brazilian soccer, but just seeing just everybody melt. Gosh,
Yeah. No, Germany scored like 5 goals within 3 minutes.
it's ridiculous. Yeah, and then it's just like the game's over at that point. Like, what are they going to do to really? Yeah. Okay, so but I want to say that Musiki wa dansi is, is that music that I would have heard at these bandas? Is that kind of like?
In 2014?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, like basically, like from what I understand, there you're just like hanging out, having a rum and coke, watching the soccer game, and there's all these old men, probably listening to old man music, you know.
Music of a dancy. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so
100%.
there's, I see how that's not exactly the same as what was going on in Evergreen at that time, but it's really just like a different context. Like you're just interested in music that people are into. And it might have taken you 30 years to allow yourself to engage with popular music. But here you are in the field, and you have given yourself permission to investigate like the music that people really like.
Oh, I love this question. Maybe it's to use the lingo of the day in terms of descriptions of music. Maybe it's just the vibe. I mean, I'm really just into music with social vibes. And as far as East African music goes, yeah, Musicology dansi has a certain vibe that I'm deeply invested in and attracted to. Just the temporal sensibility in terms of how the vibe shifts and changes over a 12-hour period when that music is playing, and all the different nuances of that music over that amount of time, in terms of starting with a certain sound around 7 p.m. into 8 or 9 p.m. and then the first stringers, the third stringers kind of walk off the stage, and the second stringers come in. These are big bands with 30 people in them. The second stringers come in and play all of the hits. And then by 11 p.m., once people are kind of like drinking, that's when things kick in terms of these pieces that then become more extended. They're a little bit more current. It's definitely the first stringers who are now like in place and performing. And then this goes until 4 a.m. That temporal sensibility is attractive to me, and I don't know that how I connect that to my earlier musical life, but there might be a connection in some way.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about it in terms of class isn't the right.
Well, you've been bringing that up in this interview, and I need to unpack that and think about it further, just in terms of my own interest in class, what that might be, and how I've embodied that in my life over time, and there must be something there.
Well, and I think popular music is all about that. And I'm not like a Marxist or super smart about class to really make any bold pronouncements here, but
that's another thing that we could bring up, and that is my interest in Tanzania specifically is that Tanzania is a socialist country.
I didn't even think about that. Right.
Tanzania is a socialist country, and so the investment in terms of class is embodied and embedded in history in that place.
Right.
That goes back to colonialism and then goes into post-colonialism as well. And so that is important.
Right.
And Musicology dansi, the dance music was sanctioned and promoted by the socialist government more than anything else. If anything, the soundtrack of socialism in East Africa was musiki wa dansi. So that's, and that was important to me to unpack and to think about and have an interest in, because much of that music is literally propaganda music, just music about working life and working class people and how to be a good worker and that sort of thing. But all with this very progressive sound that's associated with it.
Which might as well be the Minutemen.
Absolutely, I can.
Yeah, I mean, they don't sound the same. They don't have similar histories, but there's a sensibility here about a progressive sound. This, at the time, was a very progressive sound. I mean, so progressive that some people did not consider it musical. And, the lyrics in this case are explicitly about the working class, but punk always has that edge and its chip on the shoulder.
Okay, no, you're pointing something out to me that that never occurred to me, but I'm deeply interested in this connection that you're making. Thank you for finding that. I'm really impressed. This is definitely working class music, and very much in the same way that we're talking about with this other music. You have another cut here, I think.
Yeah.
The Milimani Park cut.
Right.
Number 2 there. Yeah.
And this is the subject of. This is what some of the work that you were doing most recently. Is that right?
Yeah, I published a book about this band and this music. It came out in like 2018, based on my work from around 2010 to around 2018, and specifically this singer who really struck me and his life. And so I wrote a biography of this person together with another singer as well. And the film that I made about this band, which was released not too long ago now, was a continuation of that project as well.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I loved Dar es Salaam. Very complicated city, both geographically, traffic-wise.
The traffic's changed since you were there last.
For the better?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
It took us maybe 2.5 hours to get from the airport.
That's how long it takes. It would take 3 hours to get from one side of the city, which is where the airport is, to the other side of the city.
Right.
In a space about as big as Atlanta.
Yeah.
So in a way, it maybe is like you can compare it to Atlanta at 4 p.m. In the afternoon. It'd be roughly similar in terms of the traffic.
Yeah.
But all that has changed, and there's all kinds of building that's taken place and overpasses and things, and so it's much more navigable.
Man, my friends, they go to Dar, they go back home somewhat regularly. I should try to join them again and look you up. We can go
definitely
dancing.
If that's the case, I'll take you out to see this group, and because they're still active. And I'll send you a link to this film, which I'm still thinking a lot about, and I put a lot of time and work into it. This was I call it my COVID project, because basically I shot the film over a 2-year period around 2018, 2019. And then when COVID hit, I just had all this footage, and I spent my entire COVID time here in Tallahassee. When I wasn't teaching on Zoom, I was editing that film. It took me almost 1.5 years, and I'm really proud of that film, and it's done really well. I mean, not financially, but in terms of just like festivals and winning of accolades and things. I'm really happy with where that has gone, and I put a lot of work into that particular fieldwork project.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Definitely, I'll send you a link.
Well, is that a good place to end it with that plug? Is that kind of like what you would like to plug? Is like check out the
Yeah,
film?
definitely. I mean, if I can send you the link, and if you can put it on,
Totally.
append it to this this interview, that'll be wonderful
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I feel like I could speak to you for many more hours. but-
Likewise, I've enjoyed this conversation very much, and I enjoyed your perception, and thank you for taking the time to kind of look at some of the things that I've done with my life, and now we need to turn around, and I'm going to do an ethnographic study of your work next time.
yeah, perhaps. Cool. Well, I'm going to let this music play us out, and I will cut off our mics. We'll let it run.